Freedom Central is talking to Francis Capelle about the fraudulent alternative media and truth movement that is operating in the Netherlands, which he has exposed through his book and his works and his many experiences. So, Francis, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm really looking forward to getting your information. But before we get into that, it's important to establish, how did you come to be on this journey communicating this information? Tell us a bit about your background.
All right. I was born in 1968, the 24th of June, in a place called Enschede, which is basically a small town if you compare it to Amsterdam, and it's close to the German border. When I grew up, my mother was already a songwriter. She wrote a lot of songs for famous Dutch artists. So basically I have this background of composing, doing creative things, writing a lot, reading a lot. You know, there was a lot of press involved. You know, my mother had this family company, so we had a lot of press contacts, and I was more or less the kind of guy that I like writing, reading, all that. So one day I was on the internet, just like anybody else, I guess, and I was looking for a legal way to transport some of my music from one country to another. There are a lot of, laws involved. You know, when you want to sell music, there are a lot of laws involved, and I did some research. So there was this somebody who wrote a small story on the internet, and it's basically said, you know, in Holland the courts are corrupt. There is this big criminal named Joris Demming. He's a pedophile, and he's a member of a human trafficking kind of organization, and he's the boss of our courts, and there is no justice anymore in Holland. So I became curious, and I clicked on it, and that's how I started to get in. Basically, how I started to get involved with the alternative media, because the link that this guy provided led me to a site called Klokkenluider online.
Can I just say Klokkenluider, just for everyone who's listening, actually means whistleblower?
Yeah, whistleblower online, yeah. And this is more, the site is basically put up by a guy named Micha Kat, and it's like the Dutch version of Alex Jones. Basically, this guy is, you know, he can be very aggressive sometimes, and so I was reading this site about this strange case that we had in Holland, this Joris Demming case, and I decided, you know, to do my own investigation into the matter, because if it was true, that would mean that all our courts, our entire police apparatus, the counter-terrorism unit, all that in Holland was in the hands of one man that was accused of pedophilia. And so I thought, no, this cannot be true. This has to be a hoax or something like that. But I started to investigate, calling around, see how many journalists knew about this story, and it turned out that many people in Holland, many respected journalists even, you know, they believed that this story was true. And they had a lot of evidence, because it was mainstream media news in somewhere in 2001 or 2002, can't quite remember, but somewhere there, it was mainstream media news. And this was how I got involved, because I said to myself, you know, if this really is happening, then there is no justice anymore. Yes. So I started to, you know, read everything and regarding to the Demming case, because in the beginning I only focused on the Demming case, and I just put that information into I provoked a court case. And I confronted the judge with it. Asked him, you know, how can this be? This Joris Demming is out there in the open with name, his full name, his address even. And he's accused of this and this and this and this. And I presented this case to the court, and I said, you know, basically by law, you are, so the judge is basically by law bounded to file a complaint against this man, because if this man displays any type of criminal behavior, the court has to do something about it. And they didn't. And I found out that the judge really didn't want to go into it. He didn't want to go into the matter. he did not deny that he knew about the matter, so I started to contact Micha Kat about it, and well, explained in an email who I was. I'm Francis Capelle, so and so. I write a lot and I read a lot, and so we became more or less virtual friends. That's how it started. He started to provide me with more and more information about this Joris Demming and about other things that were going on in his life. And I called him on Skype. We had private conversations because I thought, well, this man, this journalist, Micha Kat, you know, he must be in a lot of danger exposing people like that, high official, you know, government officials that are involved in this type of, well, criminal behavior. He must be in danger. And so I started, you know, to call with him, ask him, you know, how you doing, and all that. And that's how it started, basically. And he mailed me a lot too, because there were lots of people that refused to speak to him because of his aggressive way of documenting things. So if he wanted to know something about a government official, he asked me, you know, can you write a letter and, you know, ask him this or that, or go to the house of this person or that person and see if that person is actually living there, and all that. So he gave me basically he asked me a lot to assist him, and I did, because I thought this was an honest guy, a stand-up guy, a guy that was fighting for, you know, in our for the bettering the world, basically, for, you know, creating a better world.
This is Micha Kat.
Yeah, Micha Kat.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I gave him a lot of cases that he later presented on his site. And so I became a little bit known, right, in the alternative media scene. I started my own channel. It was called Nederland wacht op antwoord, which means something like Holland awaits an answer. And I was asking questions on that channel about the Demming case, about this, about that. I was filming my own court cases, putting that on the channel so each and everyone could see that the court was obviously lying about the Demming case and didn't know what to do with me. And but I did nothing strange. So all I did was taking the information that the alternative media had presented to us and put it in front of a court. That's all I did. And a couple of days later, I was arrested, and no, not arrested. How do you call that? No, that's not true. I was not arrested. I was called by the police in Holland, and they stated that, you know, they asked me if this channel Holland waits for an answer. Is it your channel? I said, yes, sir, it is. He says, well, the court, you know, put an official complaint against you, and you have to come to the police station because I want to talk to you about a certain matter, about this Demming case that you have in front of the judge. And if you don't show up, so it was more like a threat. If I wouldn't do that, I could be arrested because the court, you know, put an official complaint against me. So the next day I went to this detective, this guy, and I took my voice recorder with me. And I said, you know, whatever happens, I'm going to record it. And first he said, no, we cannot allow that. We cannot allow you to record. I said, yes, but I'm going to do it anyway. So you better arrest me now, or, you know, or leave it be, because I want the world to know what you have to say. And so he agreed with it, and I could record the full conversation that we had. And I confronted him with the Demming case, and he did some research, and he could not find anything to place on me to arrest me, because it was an open case. Whether it was true or not, it was an open case. It was out there in the open. It was mainstream media news, and it was alternative media news. And he said, well, I don't know why the court put a complaint against you, because I have no legal grounds to arrest you. But he cautioned me, basically. He said, okay, make sure that you are not become, you know, personal towards the judge. Don't call him names, don't do this, don't do that, and you will be clear. But even when I walked home that day, I remember when I went home that day, I was curious about what happened, because Micha Kat and all the others, they did exactly the same thing and far more worse. You know, they actually called the royal family, you know, pedophiles and satanic worshippers and all that, but they were never arrested for that. So I thought, hey, this is strange, basically. Here I am, just taking a case to court that is out there in the open, and I get arrested for it. And there they are, doing stating far more worse things, and being free as a bird, you know. So I start, you know, asking questions about it in emails like that. Hey, can you explain this to me? How does the law, you know, really works? Because this and this happened, but they never replied. So first, I received a lot of mail. Do this, do that. Can you do this? Can you do that? Maybe even he wrote me a mail. I still have that somewhere in my possession. He wrote me a mail. You know what? Because of all the newspapers are lying about the Deming case, it's a good idea to go out there, take the newspapers out of the supermarkets and burn them. You know, do an action like that. Just go to the supermarket, take all the newspapers and burn them. And film it and put it on YouTube. But I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. Because if I would have done that, it would be more or less a small criminal case, right?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But these were the things that they asked from me and from others, all the others that were involved in Klokkenluider Online received a mail like that, you know, maybe we should go out and paint all the newspapers or burn them.
So this Micha Kat and Klokkenluider Online were very provocative with their followers.
Yes, yes. It's a provocative site, just like Alex Jones. Basically, it's a little bit like Alex Jones, and they always put the blame on the general public because they want the general public to do something. They want you to rise up, to do something, to take the papers, burn them, go to the courts, you know, confront judges, do this, do that, go to Den Haag, demonstrate, you know, make yourself heard. Don't sit there in front of your televisions and watching quizzes and all that, but actually do something. You need to do something. If you don't do something, this government will win. That's the general message that they spread. Now, I found out through a little bit of research that there is this family, it's called the Poot family. They are basically...
So how do you spell that?
P-O-O-T.
Poot, okay, Poot.
Yeah, Poot. And they are very rich people. I mean, they have like 55 million euros for themselves. It's two brothers, they have 55 million euros, something like that. And they were paying, they had Micha Kat on the payroll for a while, because they were fighting a case and they were using the Deming case as well. So they paid Micha Kat a small salary. It was not that much. I mean, it's something like in terms of 2,000 euros a month or something like that, right? But they had him on the payroll to constantly focus his attention on this Deming character. And so I asked Micha Kat in an email, I said, you know, this family, this incredibly rich family, those two brothers that have 55 million euros, something like that, to spare. How come that there is not €1 spent on building a infrastructure? Like, okay, if you have an army and you want your soldiers to go battle a enemy of some kind, you need to provide them with something. You cannot send them out and provide them with nothing. What if somebody gets hurt? What if somebody loses his house, for instance? Why isn't there any infrastructure? Why isn't there €1 spent on any infrastructure, you know, for people that have the courage to stand up, do something, you know, but something happens to them? Where do they go? There's nothing there. There is only this message, this virtual message on the screen. And again, no answers. So I started to wonder, what is this alternative media in reality? What is it? What does it want? Is it a kind of a war game, a virtual war game? Is it like, okay, they put the information out, so they provoke basically people who want to live in a better world, a more justice world, a more justified world. Is it like they provoke those people to stand up, rise up, and and leave them alone after that? So I was having a lot of questions in the early stages of my involvement with the alternative media, and I was very frank and open about it, and I asked those questions, but I never received an email back. Never. They never answered questions like that. So made me wonder what I was dealing with, basically. So I started to investigate a little bit more, and that's how my story became to develop like that.
What you've just described is a very interesting pattern that I've also experienced. When I first started, I questioned the same thing as like these big names in the alternative media. If they generally want to grow the truth, why don't they invest a little bit of their wealth into an infrastructure, be it, even some kind of base for these people?
Yes, exactly.
Anything like that. I've often thought the same thing, Francis. So yes, that's a logical thought pattern that you've gone along, and a logical set of questions you've asked. And to be honest with you, the fact that you've not got an answer actually speaks volumes. They don't want to do that because that's not what they're really about.
Exactly. And then I remember there was this episode because I was also following Alex Jones at a certain point of time, seeing what he was doing over there. And there was this episode in which he burned dollars. He took the dollars, in front of a camera, he burned them. And he said, this money has only face value. The Federal Reserve is a big fraud. It's a hoax. It's this, it's that. He explained the entire hoax of the money system, which is in fact true, basically. But I was wondering, there he is burning dollars, but he's raking in 5 million of those worthless face value dollars each and every year. But he doesn't spend one of those dollars on building an infrastructure for all those people who become a victim when they stand up against a government that has all the means to destroy them. So questions like that, they are not only, you have to ask yourself always questions like that. Because if you don't do that, you become a puppet of the alternative media. More or less like a puppet, a follower, a blind follower, just like those people who sit in front of their TV sets, you sit in front of your computer. But I never got any answers on topics like that. And there was a lot of, I would say, almost anger when I started to ask those questions on my channel as well. Because I voiced my opinion, just like I do now, in Dutch, of course, on my channel. And to my amazement, a lot of people, they were really angry. And they said, what are you saying? That we have to do nothing? That we, what do you want? What do you want? And I said, no, I'm not stating that that it is good not to do anything about it, but if I'm on a ship, so I try to compare, to give a clear comparison. If I'm on a ship, let's say we both are on a ship, Melanie.
Yeah.
And I notice that the ship is sinking. So I'm going to tell you about it. I say, hey, Melanie, look, there's water coming in. You check it out, you see that there's a leak. And we cannot stop it. We have no life vessels. We don't have anything. Now, we both know that this ship is going to continue to sink. So the best thing you can do in a case like that, in my opinion, is to stay on board as long as you can, to buy yourself time, to save your strength, and hope that there is some rescue later on. But what this alternative media does, they turn that around. They say the boat is sinking, the ship is sinking. Look, here it is, here's the evidence, there's the leak, we cannot stop it, so jump and fight. You cannot do that. First you have to save your strength, because if this world turns into a real chaos, a real crisis for each and every one of us, we need all the strength we can possibly get. If we start to act now, like trying to find regions that are far beyond our reach, because we cannot reach those people that we are fighting. How can I stop David Rockefeller? Or how can I stop the Vatican by typing some messages on my laptop? I mean, it's ridiculous to believe that. You cannot do that. You cannot break a power circle like that. And what they do, in my opinion, is they create almost like a religious belief that the people are capable of, turning it around without any means, because the people is just a word. It's just a word. It doesn't really mean anything, because in my opinion, many of us are alone. We have our own lives. We don't know that many people. Maybe 3, 4 good friends, maybe 7, 8, but that's about it. We are not with the millions like they claim. They claim, oh yes, we are a mass, it's millions of people out there. But no, it's a million individuals that, can be brought down one by one. So we cannot, I believe, sincerely, I believe that this war, that is this virtual war, because now it is more or less a virtual war. Everything that does not happen in my environment is still not there. I believe that it is not possible to win a war like this, but there are things you can do. There are certain there are things you can do, but they refuse to speak about the things you can do. The only thing they want you to do is rise up against people who have all the means, all the money in the world, who own everything, and they ask you to stand up and do something about it. And I think that's a false message, it's a false pretext, and it's not leading to anything. It's leading to countries like Egypt, where people, rise up with the thousands and 10,000s. They think that they are getting rid of a regime, but what happens next is they put back a regime that is far more tougher, far more dangerous than the regime that they got rid of in the first place. So that's about it. That's about what I feel towards the message, the general message of the alternative media. Now, I also found out that in Holland, the alternative media has 3 or 4 big sites. You have Klokkenluider online, then you have Argeso, and you have a couple of more big sites, right? And
just name them. Just let's talk about who they are.
What do you mean, who they are?
Like the names?
Okay, yeah, Micha Kat is from Klokkenluider online, so Whistleblower online.
Yeah.
Then you have Arend Seevat. Basically, he is representing Argeso, a platform in Holland, which is a little bit similar to Klokkenluider online.
Yeah.
And they are connected because of the fact that Micha Kat has this show. It's called Klokkenluider on air instead of online. And this is a radio show, I guess just like you have, and it is broadcasted through Argeso.
Okay.
So they are connected with each other in a certain sense. And there is no coincidence here. The alternative media may look like, it may appear like something that comes from, well, I would say from an ideal or something, It appears to me that if you look at the Dutch alternative media, it looks like, okay, Micha Kat was a journalist, he was a mainstream journalist before, but because of the injustice and all that, he put up his own site. And Arend Seevat, he was this and he was that, but because of all that, they put up a site like that to create some form of open information and justice. It looks like that, but it is not like that. They are pretty organized. They even have this, I would say, like Hollywood has the Oscar, Oscar nomination for the best movie or the best screenwriter or the best actor.
Yeah.
The alternative media in Holland has its own Oscar. It's called the Frontier Award.
Yes, yeah.
And it's called the Frontier Award. And if you study the award, it's a Egyptian image of a female, and that female is called Nefertiti. That's her name.
Nefertiti, yes.
Yeah, that's her name.
Yeah. The
And,
Frontier actually have a bookshop. It's owned by Herman Hecker.
Yeah.
Now we've had our shortcomings with Herman Hecker as well. He ran a conference at the back end of 2009, and Patricia Corey was speaking there, and Albert Toby was speaking there, and we got to interview both of them afterwards at some stage. But we wanted to go to this conference, and he said he didn't want people coming there capitalizing on his investment.
Yeah.
Okay, and at the time, I mean, we didn't even have a donate button on our website.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I know the group of people.
But this image that they use, this Nefertiti image.
Yes.
They explained that Nefertiti was a more or less a pharaoh kind of person that was always fighting to change Egypt, to make it more just, to make it more that. Now, when you look into the history of Nefertiti, the opposite is true. Because there was never a change in Egypt. In the highest ranks of Egypt, where the pharaohs were, they always basically despised common people. And the daughter of Nefertiti wrote a letter to some kind of a other pharaoh, in which she explained, you know, I know that you have a lot of sons. I would like to marry one because I cannot marry to a common man. So you will see that if you look at it, there is this symbol, this frontier award, but it is a symbol for something that doesn't change. To me, it is a symbol of the power that will always be in place, no matter what you do, what you say, what you write, or what you don't do.
Interesting.
And I find it strange that they use a symbol like that to award somebody in the alternative media. Because basically you award somebody with a symbol that clearly states there will be no change. And so I asked questions like that either. And they didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't like questions like that. Now I found out that Argus Old Radio and Klokkenluider on Air, I give you an example. Micha Kat one day stated on his site, you know, people, we have to come together, and we are going to have this big demonstration, this mass rally in Utrecht, and we will, we are not going to, we need to get together and create a massive awareness. We need to get rid of this Deming guy, this Joris Deming. We need to get rid of him, and we will speak to the people to the general public about it. So many people came to his symposium, and this was organized in Utrecht in the Emma building. And I found out that
Emma, just so that people can understand, Emma's Queen Emma. It's E-M-M-A.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Queen Emma.
Okay.
I found that a little bit strange because if you attack the royal family and accuse them of, pedophile activities and satanic rituals and all that, he went so far that he explained that Friso was, present when a Dutch girl was killed, raped, and tortured to death in Friesland. And he went so far that to claim that Friso, which is the son of the royal family, one of the sons, was actually present during the murder, the torture, the rape, and the satanic abuse. I find it strange that somebody who talks like that organizes, a symposium in a building named after a Dutch queen, Emma.
Very good point. And
so
absolute
I
hypocrisy.
A little bit strange.
Yes.
So I was looking into this Emma thing, and I found out to my amazement that it was a building that belonged to a foundation, the Emma Foundation. And if you go to the site, because they have their own website, I mean, it's out there in the open. It's not hard to find at all. If you type in Emma Utrecht, you will find the site. And it clearly states on the first page that you see that their operations are based on the United Nations Manifesto. Now,
what does that mean?
This is really strange, because the United Nations, according to the alternative media in Holland, is basically the headquarters of the New World Order. Because what they want is a one world government. That's what the United Nations really does, according to the alternative media. And now there they are, you know, seeking shelter in a foundation that receives money from the United Nations and is a part of the United Nations, and only rents to third parties, rent space, I mean. So like if you wanna have a symposium or organize something, you can rent space in the Emma building, but they only do so according to that contract if your mission is not in conflict with the mission of the United Nations. So I find that very strange and highly alarming.
Absolutely, I am a bit alarmed. That is extremely alarming. Now, Francis, that's extremely important that you've brought that point up at this juncture, because I will just say, and we have spoken about this before, but it's important to bring in at this point, is that beginning of November we saw the Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference here in Holland. Freedom Central has got the press conference for the Breakthrough Energy Movement conference actually on our website, and we interviewed the head sort of moderator, who was a guy called Sasha Stone, who was the founder of Humanitad, which is directly linked with the United Nations and even claims to uphold the Millennium Development Goals with regards to climate change.
Yes.
On Humanitad's website.
Yeah.
Now, I'll question Sasha Stone, and you must actually watch this interview. Sasha, you do some amazing work with Humanitad, but there have been many people asking what is the connection to the United Nations? Is Humanitad the more humane side of the United Nations? Can you please explain it to us?
Sure, at the risk of losing whatever clearance I have at the United Nations, I'll be happy to talk about it. I still own a license to perform certain actions there. The bottom line is this. I mean, I grew up in a war, and I got to a point when I hit my old age, I decided to become very inclusive. I'm an expert, I believe, and many others believe, on the Babylonian priesthood and on what has eventuated in our midst as the United Nations, on the back end of the League of Nations, on the back end of Cecil John Rhodes's rather toxic little roundtable sessions back in the day. Yes, there are elite covert powers and egregious cartels that have conspired and continue to conspire to own and control the human story. And that's a given when you wake up within yourself. But I did determine for myself and within my organization that there are a great many good people who are working in politics, working in the halls of government, in Whitehall and in the White House and so on. And I decided that Humanitad's work in this kind of activism should really be about rapprochement, should be about bridging. And to this extent, I wanted to work with what we call the multilateral community, because I didn't feel we would be qualified to speak on behalf of the planet of people if we weren't engaging with those macro structures of governance and administration. So I set about learning how are they articulated, how do they work. And I had to merge DNA in that sense with the United Nations. And I'll tell you this much, I learned something that I needed to learn. As an angry activist, I needed to learn something. And that was that 98, 99% of the people I've met within the United Nations, diplomats, ambassadors, some of them completely inane characters who have so unqualified to have diplomatic passes, and will pass a resolution simply because they had a delicious biscuit at halftime. That is not the point. They are good humans, bleeding hearts, most of them. But I did discover, and I hope I'm not being too conspiratorial here, I did discover an egregious sliver, shall I say, of active technocracy, which appears to be running the game. That much I did observe, and it wasn't pleasant.
And I want to say thank you very much for clarifying that, because there has been, unfortunately, the negative buzz at the conference is what the hell is the UN doing here? Because there was
well,
a lot
the
of
UN's
confusion.
not, I'm not the UN.
There's confusion between Humanitad and the United Nations.
There's a lot of linkage between Humanitad and all the subsidiaries of that.
We're working
with
with
the UN.
196 nations, states that exist that contain human beings. We're concerned with the human beings being contained within the artifice of those nation states. So if we need to articulate arguments to deregulate the vaccination programs and all of these sort of deathly constructs, we have to present ourselves at the table.
No,
So-
I understand that.
What do you
But
mean that you are registered as an NGO at the UN?
No, hell no. And I wouldn't register myself as an NGO at the United Nations. But we worked in the United Nations. We produced the Millennium Development Goal Awards.
He said that, we're a Trojan horse going in there. But I looked at Sasha Stone's profile pictures on his website, artwork, which he does, graphic art, and there's like Masonic symbols, all-seeing eyes, caduceus with snakes. I mean, all of the regulars, the cobra and eagles, from the Roman eagle, on all these artworks which he's created, and it's got his name on. So this is, if I was on the good side or working, didn't want to be associated with those sort of people, I wouldn't be using their symbolism. I'll be very honest with you. I find that quite perplexing that he's using it in his artwork.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And this is the founder of Humanitad, who actually claims that Humanitad is a Trojan horse going into the United Nations. This guy also stood up when I questioned Michael Tellinger, and I said to Michael Tellinger, Michael, why do you praise Nelson Mandela when he's a Knight of Malta? And then this guy, Sasha Stone, actually interrupted Michael's arm. I have another question for you. I wanted to ask you about, with regards to Nelson Mandela. Recently, you were giving an interview which I watched on YouTube, and you spoke quite highly of Nelson Mandela. I was wondering if you knew at all that he is a Knight of Malta, if you had any knowledge of that.
I wasn't aware of that. But I didn't know he was a, what did you call him?
A Knight of Malta.
A Knight of Malta.
Knight of St. John, Knight of Malta. I've sent you the link to my free ebook. It's all documented. I've got pictures and everything.
Well, just like Robert Mugabe is a Rosicrucian priest.
That's right.
A high Rosicrucian priest.
I have to say that I know members of the Knights of Malta, and I know members of the Orders of St. John, some of whom I know very well and love.
He admits to actually knowing them, and he travels like Misha Cut all around the world. He's been from Amsterdam to London to Bali. He's coming back. He's back in London now. He's going off to Mexico for the 21st. He gets to travel freely with his girlfriend, beautiful little Indonesian girl that goes with him everywhere, toting Chanel handbags. I saw her with one at the conference.
Right.
So there is this absolute hypocrisy. With regards to, they expect us to believe that these organizations that are working with the United Nations are working in our favor, but they're working with the alternative media. We should be alarmed, shouldn't we, Francis?
Exactly. Yeah, we should be highly alarmed. When I found that out, I was just like you said. I was just like it was like lightning was hitting me. I was perplexed. I looked at the screen. I said, here is this guy, this Micha Kat, fighting the Dutch royal family, fighting the New World Order, speaking out against the United Nations, and here he is, and his followers. They are in a building that bears the United Nations flag. I mean, what kind of craziness is this? This is like, I would almost state, if we could go back in time, it would be like, okay, we have this party, it's against Hitler, and we are going to organize it in the Reichstag building. We are going to organize it in Hitler's office and play a Trojan horse. You can't do that.
No, they can't expect us, I think maybe it's because we've been so stupid for so long, they think they can pull any old bullshit on us. But you know what? The lines of hypocrisy are skewing too far beyond reality now.
Exactly. And, I was alarmed by all of this, and I already did a lot. I had court cases, pending, and I was saying to myself, what did I do? Because, I asked on my turn a lot of people to stand up. That's what I did on my channel also, I asked people, rise up, stand up, don't take this tyranny for granted. You have to do something. I became just like them. I wanted to get as much people involved as I could. Never asked though, and I will tell you straight, I never asked for donations. I never asked to send me one dime. I only did it because I liked doing it.
Yeah.
And I thought the message was important. So I never asked anybody for money. And even the work that I did for Micha Kat, he can never claim that he received an email from me asking him for money, because I never asked him to do so. I did it for free because I was convinced, and I'm still convinced though, that the world is in big trouble. You know, it's not a question of it's not a question of not believing in the fact that the world is in trouble, but it is a question in disbelieving those who are telling us about it.
Yeah.
Who are they? What do they want? And who are they serving? They are not serving the general public and not the public interest. I would find out real soon about that fact, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So you're saying that the majority of the alternative media in Holland, the big names that have all these sort of airspace and viewers and followers who don't trust the mainstream, they've been caught up in this alternative media, that is all controlled as well by the UN. Now I want to say something else to you, Francis. You know about this little place in Holland called Wonderland?
Wonderland, no.
Well, it's a place where apparently sovereign people can go live, you know, people...
Yes,
Okay.
I heard about it.
I haven't been there, but a friend of mine was quite alarmed to find they've erected the UN flag.
Let me tell you something about that place. Wonderland, I didn't know it about under that name. But I know what area you talk about. There is this site on, it's called I claim my name.nl. That's what it says if you translate it into English. And you can go there, and you can, they offer you a process, you know, you go to a certain process and then you can claim your sovereignty, right? Mm-hmm. But the man who's in charge of that is the man who's in charge of Emma. His name is Luc van Dinter, and he's in charge of Emma. He's doing all that. So he's in charge of this Emma building.
Emma Foundation.
The Emma Foundation, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah. And he's offering a method to, you know, claim your sovereignty. Well, I spoke to some people who went through the same process, and it doesn't help shit, excuse my language. Mm. Because if you do that, you're still not a free person. You are still not considered a sovereign person. The only way, in Holland, for instance, it's a pretty easy way. The only way, if you want to get rid of this controlled and controlling government, if you want to get rid of all that, you go to the mayor's office, or to the local authorities, and we have this system. It's called GBA. It means General Basic Administration, where you know where your name is. It's a file with your name, the date of birth, where you live, what you do, all that. You just say, you know, I'm not willing to be on this record anymore. I'm going to move to wherever you want to move, and they are forced to, you know, write you out. If you are out, basically nothing can touch you, because the government cannot write you any more letters. They can't do anything anymore. But the opposite side, it means that you will have big problems with your. If you have a job, you will be in big trouble, because they cannot find you anymore in this GBA system. So they could force you to go back into it or take away your job. You cannot apply for government benefits once you're out there. So there will be a lot of, you know, problems. But if you really are the kind of person that says, okay, I have enough of all this, of all those rules and regulations, and I don't want to deal with this government anymore, and I refuse to pay taxes. And if you're really a person that is, you know, willing to do that, you just write yourself out on the GBA, and there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called flying beneath the radar, and to be honest with you, it's what we've been doing for a while.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
You know, instead of actually going, you know, sending... I've recently come to question some of the people that I interviewed early on this year. One particular called Santos Bonacci. Initially he said, yes, no, go claim your sovereignty, and he gave me this Denecay notice of fraud that we had to send to the Vatican, London, everything, claiming our sovereignty and all of that. I mean, sending up red flags everywhere, no doubt. But also, what does it mean after that? Well, you know, you're pretty stuck. You know,
Exactly,
in
yeah.
terms of transport, you know, passports, it's difficult to get a passport to travel and all that sort of
Exactly.
thing. You know, that's
Well-
one of the things that in terms of freedom is important to me.
Exactly. The Emma Foundation, for instance, if you just raised the passport issue, the Emma Foundation had passports, you know, so-called sovereignty passports. You could buy them, but you can't do anything with them.
Yeah. There's
But they
also
sold-
there's a world passport, and you know what? I was also going to apply for that because I'm South African living in Holland. There's a world passport, but unfortunately, the world passport system, okay, actually registers back to a place in New York, and it costs an absolute fortune.
Exactly. It's all about money.
Yeah.
Each and every time, it's all about money.
Yeah.
And you see, the strange thing is that this alternative media is all about the money. It's about money. You have to pay for almost everything. They ask you constantly to donate, to do this, to do that, to buy this shirt, buy this thing, buy this item.
Yeah.
It's all about money. But the real people who, you know, who are willing to rise up against this evil kind of thing that took over this planet, you know, they will not receive a dime when they become into trouble. Then the alternative media says, well, yeah, but it's your own responsibility. You know, if you stand up to the courts, you must suffer the consequences. That's your responsibility. We did not force you to do that. We did not do that. We did not force you to do that. It's your own free will. That's what you hear then. So people who start to provoke court cases based on what they know or might think they know, according to the alternative media, you know, they will be punished in some cases, severely punished. Maybe they lose their jobs, they lose their income, or they, you know, God knows what else, but they will suffer. And as soon as they start suffering, the alternative media is closing the door on you. They will say, well, yeah, sir, we can't do anything for you. That's the consequence of your own actions. You are responsible. Everybody's responsible, you know, for themselves. Well, if that's the case, in my opinion, the alternative media should be banished. Because they ask people to stand up and rise up, do this, do that, burn newspaper stands, take the judges out of court, beat them in the streets. That's what they say in Holland, you know. You should go in there, take them all out, you know, drown them in the pounds, beat them to death, let them know this and that. That's what they're asking you to do. And I never went into a courthouse to, you know, take a judge and try to get him outside to beat him up. No, I just went in there and I presented the case that I saw that was happening. And the alternative media, you know, they claim that they are not responsible. Well, if you are not responsible for 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 persons that stand up and suffer consequences, how can you claim that you feel responsible enough to save the world? If you cannot even save 4 people, if you cannot even house 3 people, if you cannot even help 1. So, to me it became pretty clear that there is this falsehood. I would call it a falsehood. It's a organized falsehood. It's there to, I almost say it's there to feel what your emotions are, to see on which topics you respond or which topics you don't respond. They are there to contain you basically in a certain state of mind or bring you into a certain state of mind, and then you're on your own and you will lose. That's how simple it is. You will lose the case.
It sounds like an advanced psyops of some kind and a social
Yes.
experiment where they're drawing information from people.
That's right. And you know, Alex Jones has this, and David Icke and all those people claim, they said, okay, they have this golden rule: problem, reaction, solution. That's
Yeah.
what the government does. That's what the New World Order does. They create a problem, provoke a reaction, offer you a solution, right? That's the 3 things, the 3 keystones of, you know, the message of the alternative media. The alternative media, however, does the same thing. they only change one thing. They offer you a problem, they provoke a reaction, and then they offer no solution. There's no solution. Once you stand up and you react on what they say or what they want you to do, write letters to your congressman, do this, do that, go into courts, do this, do that. So they present you the problem. That could be like, okay, Joris Demick is a pedophile. That's the problem. Now, we want you to react. So now the people start to react.
Yeah.
But we have no solution.
The media, the alternative media are very much part of the react paradigm within the overall intelligence operation that is, going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's like a psyop.
It's exactly a psyop. I've been trying to prove this for some time, and I'm so glad that someone from looking at it from a Dutch perspective, which is completely different to the way I've been coming at it, can provide exactly the same things that I've been saying based on his experiences.
Yeah, it's a psyop because the world, I told you before, like if you want to impose the new world order, you have to create the new world chaos. You have to create it, because if there's no chaos, there's no reason to impose any kind of order. Why should a policeman patrol peaceful streets? Why? There's no reason for him to be there, right? So what they do is creating a psyop, a kind of a mass hypnosis, like David Icke calls it, but now in the opposite direction. All the governments are against us. They are seeking our death. They are plotting the entire, the downfall of this earth, the downfall of your life, your children's life. They are plotting that. They are 24 hours a day. They are plotting it. You have to do something. That's, it's more or less provoking this reaction without giving you any kind of real support, the support that they get. And they ask from you money, housing. They ask that from the common people to give it to them. But they ask the common people to fight their fight. So it's a psyop. No way.
Yeah.
It is something different. It's a psyop. It has to be.
Absolutely. And of course, what I've recently pointed out is that any of these people who appear to have affluence, ease of travel, and they have very well organized platforms that are well managed technically on the internet, possibly by webmasters and stuff like that. There's definitely more going on, because true alternative media is notoriously broke. I know, I've been doing this for 4 years.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call us alternative media, because I think that's an insult to us now.
Yeah.
I think we call ourselves free media now.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the organized alternative media, something like that. It's the organized media, or an organized psyop, or whatever you want to call it, but it is not, your liberation. It's not seeking your liberation or seeking your benefit. It's not seeking that at all. It's just, seeking their own benefit and somehow helping to create the chaos that is needed to impose the new world order. Yeah. So basically, this movement cannot be stopped anymore, because it's out there already. It changed minds, and it provoked court cases, and it provoked a division in society that cannot be, you cannot undo it anymore. So the world is already on a path, brought on a path that cannot be, it cannot be stopped anymore. The chaos, eventually, I believe the chaos will, strike. The euro will go down, and at the end, I guess the way it looks now, it's a horrible thing to say, but I guess that at the end, the common people have only each other to eat. We can only, at the end, we can only destroy our own infrastructure. We can only destroy the buildings that we pay for, and we can only attack each other, because there will be nothing left. The persons, the real perpetrators of this huge crime, were the same in the old days like they are now. They are the same persons. They are unseen and untouchable. Don't let them confuse you that bringing the name and the address out of David Rockefeller or the Rothschilds or the Morgans or whoever, that is the same as the ability to touch them, because we can't touch them. And frankly, they don't care what we write about them or what we do on this internet, because it's a virtual thing. There is no real danger. The only thing that we do, we glue ourselves onto a computer 24/7. We are digging, we start to dig in more gore, more violence, more satanic ritual, more this, more that, new evidence, evidence to back up the evidence, evidence to back up the evidence that we backed up the evidence in the first place. We start digging. We can't stop. We are in this process that we are sitting there in front of a computer screen 24 hours a day, not seeing even the world that we try to save. We don't even see the world anymore. We are sitting there in front of this screen and do exactly the same as they accuse the general population of. They accuse the general population of being dumb, being stupid, being idiot and ignorant, sitting there in front of their television screens, you know, like idiots, only watching soap operas, only watching this and that. But what do? We sit in front of a computer 24/7, only watching blood, violence, gore, satanic ritual, abuse, this, that.
Yeah.
Are we better? No. We are in the same state of mind, but we only react to a different picture.
Very well put, Francis. That's incredibly well put.
It's horrible. And, well, yeah, that's, you know, when I discovered it, I said, you know, I must be the most stupid, most idiot guy in the world that I actually believe that I was working all those, you know, hours, because I spent countless hours on the streets talking to people, giving out information, handing them out pamphlets. And I was really believing that I changed something. But let me tell you, Melanie, the next day, people go to their stores and have to buy their food. And they have to go home, and they have to go to their jobs, and there's nothing that I can do about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Francis, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What do you see the solutions as? You know, because obviously what we've been presented with, you know, I met Dr. Judy Wood recently, and she said to me, you know, the way they've done it is, if you don't like the lie behind door number 1, check out the lie behind door number 2. And this is what they've done with the alternative media. It's just a different version of the lie. Okay, so now the solutions that we've been pushed with through the alternative media, potentially, and I've been suspecting for a while, are pushing us directly into the New World Order's arms. What do you perceive are the solutions now? What do we do?
Well, that's a really good question. A really good question. I ask myself that question lots of times. I remember that I once saw a movie. I forgot the name of the movie, but it was about Liam Neeson was in it, and he was playing. It was about the battle between Ireland and England. What's the name of that movie again? Well, anyway, in that movement, there's this beautiful statement, and there is this guy who says, you know, we can only defeat the English tyranny not by fighting it, but by ignoring it. By, you know, if we don't ignore them, like, okay, if we react to them, we give them power, basically.
Yes, I believe that, because it's actually, if you look at the metaphysical level of this, you know, energy flows where attention goes.
Exactly. If the world, I guess it's not possible anymore, but if you ask me, the solution that I found for myself is to ignore. Really, let me tell you. Let me give you the best example. Okay. There is positive energy and there is negative energy, but both of them are separate matters. They don't have the ability to change. If you cross them, you know, you get, negative energy doesn't have the ability to change. Positive energy doesn't have the ability to change. It just is, right? So I view it, there are two separate powers present in this world today. If you put it real simple, there's good and there's evil. If we start to react towards the evil and we start to discuss with evil, it will only take a matter of time that we will become evil. We will become the enemy that we fight.
Yeah.
Because the only means, the only options that they open up to us is to get our hands dirty. Yeah, it's very hard to explain it, maybe.
I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so now we bring these guys to justice. What do? Do we put them under a guillotine and be monsters like they were by chopping people's heads off? You know? The big question we've been asking. I'm a volunteer citizen juror on the International Tribunal to Crimes of the Church and State. And the big question I've been asking is, okay, so if we ever manage to get these guys into court, which I sincerely doubt, okay, we're just launching all the evidence online so we can have everybody look at the evidence and, you know, pass judgments that way, you know, opening it up to the world, genocide across the world. I'm doing it, Kevin Annett is fronting the Canada issue. I'm doing it on behalf of the Boers in South Africa. We're having a look that way. Okay, so yes, we managed to prove that the Queen of England ordered however many people to be killed or whatever.
Yeah.
What do? I mean, do we bring her before a public hearing, a crowd of people and chop her head off? I mean, do we behave like they did and they do? I mean, that's not really what that are the answers. We can't run the system based on what they've done before.
That's right, but you see, if you look at it that way, like in your example, the Queen of England, you prove this and you prove that. The first thing you have to realize, the only thing they can do it is because they have the money to back it up.
Yeah.
And the people are paying them their money. And it strikes to me that before you can actually start to demand change, because we cannot change their mindset. I don't believe that we are able to change their mindset. We can't do that. But what we can is cut off the money flow that goes into them. And I always goes into their hands. I always ask myself, why is a nation not capable, once they recognize that the government is ruling against them, is ruling against their interest, against all of that, why are the nations not capable to refuse to pay taxes all at once? You know, like, why is it that a nation can organize itself like, okay, if there's a sex party or a sex trans party somewhere, we find 10,000s of people, you know, fighting to get the last ticket to see that spectacle. But why is it that so many people agree on the subject that governments are ruling against our interest, but are not able to stop paying taxes altogether? Because believe me, if we would stop paying taxes with 10,000 or 20,000 people at once, the system will have a serious problem. And it will not go away if we would do that, if we would actually do that. Now, a lot of people will reason, no, we can't do that because many of the taxes are in a automated form, because they are you know, they are directly taken out of my paycheck, or they are directly taken out of this or that. Well, if we don't want to work for them, we have to, you cannot win this battle without sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something. And if that means you have to sacrifice your job, you have to do it in order to shut the system down. This system will not stop as long as it gets fueled by money.
Yeah.
And
But also, Francis, for intelligent people, let's be honest, for intelligent people, there's ways of moving outside the system and setting up your own businesses.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, setting up your own businesses, selling your own books, or do something with your life that makes you able to make a little bit of money first and see what happens. But if you're stuck into the system so much as we are now, you cannot demand change because you are funding the people you demand that change from to rule against you. You are funding them to rule against you.
Yeah.
So we cannot demand change.
But Francis, the paradox you point out, and it's not a criticism because we found ourselves in the same circumstance as you, is that you say on one hand, yes, the alternative media don't support you when you're homeless and without a job, but the only way you can only do this is if you're outside the system. I mean, you couldn't be part of the alternative media blogging the way we do, knowing what we do, and still hope that our employer doesn't find out and fire us because we're doing things that are a conflict to the company's interests.
Of course not, because that's the same as believing if you would be in Auschwitz that you could write to Hitler and make a statement of griefs and say, Mr. Adolf Hitler, I don't like your barracks here, I don't like Auschwitz at all, I don't like this and I don't like that, please get me out of here. That won't work, because it won't work. And the alternative media, working together with the government, being a part of the government, being a part of the money system, being a part of the tax system, being a part of all that is already in bondage.
Yeah.
So they will never be able to change anything because they are not willing to change their own ways. They are not willing to live without money. They are not willing to sacrifice. They want to fly first class in and out of this country. They want to possess houses, cars. They want to possess kind of a status. They want people to recognize, oh, there he is, this guy is, he's the change, like Obama, and that's what they want. And if you are a character like that, you will never be able to change. Never. It will not change anything. I don't see a solution at this point. I only see a movement that is it's like a cancer. We established there is a cancer growing in our society. We established that, but we are not interfering with it. We are not trying to get it out. We are not trying to remove it. Instead of that, we fund it. And then we are amazed this cancer is growing. Of course this cancer grows. Of course, and it will continue to grow. And so, if you ask me for the solution, hell, that's a really difficult question. But I state, and I always said it, if you are not willing to sacrifice the things that you think that you are possessing right now, then there will be no change.
I agree completely. Yes, we've done that whole process. The whole Freedom Central process for us was letting go of all our material and starting anew. And with it came the whole enlightenment and journey we've been on. So I totally agree with you, Francis. Now, just bringing it full swing, you've gone into some great detail there with regards to the bigger picture. Is there anything more specific you want to talk about with regards to your experience and certain people within the alternative media? I know we spoke about Art Van last night. Is that something you want to discuss?
Yeah, as I told you already, I asked a lot of questions, and suddenly, in the process of asking those questions, because you have to understand, there were also people from the alternative media or part of the alternative media that came to our home, ate and drank with us, sat on the same table, slept in our houses. I'm just a common guy. I like people in general, right? And I'm very respectful whether you are a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim. I don't care about all that. So I asked those people that came to my house and visited me and ate with me and slept with me and drank with me, questions, and they didn't answer. They left, and I never saw them again. And ever since that I didn't see them again, the strange problems began. So a strange problem was that the housing community that I was renting my house from suddenly claimed that I was 3 months overdue with paying the rent. Now I could easily take my bank statements, and rebut that claim. But they didn't want to hear about it anymore. They just said, we are going to bring this case to court, and you have to leave. You have to leave your house. You have to go. This process started as soon as I started to talk about the alternative media and the things that we discussed in your show now. And I found this problem. It was unbelievable to me. There was this cash collector, came to my door, rang. He said, "Are you Mr. Capelle?" I said, "Yes." "Well, you have 3 months overdue rent. If you don't pay the sum of like 1,500 or 1,800 euros now, you will have to leave your house." I said, "Well, this can't be." So I produced the bank statements. This guy looks at it. He says, "Wow, there's this big mistake. How can this be? I see you paid. So don't worry about it. That's what he said. I'm very sorry. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry I wasted your time. I will take the copy of the bank statement. I will send the file back to the housing company, and it will be all right. They made a mistake, clearly. Maybe an identity, maybe an address, I don't know. I cannot explain it to you, but they made a mistake. Now, the strange thing is that 2 weeks later, before I was actually evicted from my home, I spoke about this problem that started to occur on my channel. So Arend Sevat of Argus Oog Radio invited me to his show to talk about it. And I spoke about it. I said, Arend, let's be honest. I have some questions, about the alternative media. What is the purpose of it? What is the purpose of the alternative media if you don't provide in some kind of infrastructure and all the things that we discussed, Melanie. And so he did not know how to answer those things. And but he let me do my word. I have to give him that. He let me talk about this message in general, and let me talk about this crazy development of almost being at the point of eviction, evicted from my home. And 1 week later, I received a court notice, and it said the same judge that I had provoked, basically, on the Deming case, had ruled that I had to leave my house, that I didn't pay the rent. So I tried to send in the statements to court after his ruling, because I thought this must be a mistake. This cannot be real, people. This is not happening. I could not believe what was happening to me, because you have to understand, my daughter, she came and visited me in that place. It was a nice place. It was a small home, but it was a nice and cozy place. And I was about to lose that place. So I was becoming pretty desperate, and I was sending my bank statements to court, and I received a letter. Well, unfortunately for you, the ruling was already done, but I could, leave my house under protest. That's how they call it. You have to leave your house under protest. So contact a lawyer, tell them what's going on, leave your house under protest, and once you are on the streets, Mr. Capelle, and you don't have any income anymore, and no house and no shelter, and it was winter last year. It was during the end of December that it happened last year. During all that, if you're on the streets and if you're freezing your nuts off, start up a court case. Well, I could not believe the craziness of that answer. So I was evicted from my home. I could not battle the case anymore in court. So I sent out an email to Micha, and this was the first time, the real first time. I was desperate enough, and I said, Micha, listen, even when we have our differences sometimes in opinion, because we had no personal conflicts yet, even when we have our differences in opinion, I know that you have at least, that you own a house in Holland. Would you be so kind, and help me out so that I will not be on the streets? And I'm willing to pay you the rent. If there's internet, I can make some money and I will pay the rent. I assure you that I will pay the rent. There was no answer. I started to mail all my friends, the people that were, the friends of my channel, all the friends that were there. Almost no response. Only responses like, oh, Capelle, we are so sorry. We are so sorry that this is happening. How can this be happening in a country like this? But there was no help from the alternative media. So now I started to turn around to Arend Sevat and to another guy. His name is Plante. He was also involved with Argus Oog Radio and Klokkenluider Online. He was a whistleblower himself. I started, to mail them. Listen, I have probably a week. Can somebody help me? I need, a roof above my head at least, and nothing came from him. So Ed van Rooij, which is a whistleblower who lives in Belgium now.
Yeah, can I just interject at this stage and say we actually do have an interview with Ed van Rooij on our website. He was the former safety manager for Royal Dutch Philips. It's Philips
That's
Electronics,
right. Yeah.
And he's come forward with a whole bunch of information about how the Dutch various people are being poisoned through electronics, through the various Dutch royal family owned companies, etc.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I did a lot of interviews with him as well in the early days when I started up my channel. I interviewed him about the vaccines, about all that. And so this guy, and I respected this man, his knowledge, because he truly is a scientist, a great guy in his field, right? So this guy picked it up, and he said, you know, Francis, I'm going to write your house and company a letter, and they will not evict you. It cannot be done. And but I didn't trust in that. I stated, well, Mr. Van Rooij, if it cannot be done, why did you leave this country? Because you left this country because you stated in the open that our constitution is not in place anymore, which is true. We are the only European country that has no constitutional court system anymore. So all the things that are happening in our country that are unconstitutional cannot be won. You cannot go to court and try to win these cases, because it is what it is. We are not a constitutional member of the European Union anymore. So the judge cannot, look at a case and see if this case is not conflicting with the Constitution. So I stated, Mr. Van Rooij, thank you, for your willingness to fight my case, but this is a no-win case. I will get evicted in a couple of days, and you can help me like this. Then he came back. He said, I have this place. It's not my place, but I know about a place because there are some people, some personal friends of mine who work for me. They live there as well, and I know that there are still some houses available. I will make sure that you will not be on the streets. So I was really, really grateful. Now you have to understand that this Ed van Rooij didn't have to do that at all, because I only interviewed him a couple of times. But the persons like Micha Kat and Sevat, now that's a completely different matter, because I worked with them, for real. We had a different kind of connection. We spoke to each other privately on Skype, on that. Micha Kat, for instance, is now on Skype, but he will never, ever, send me a message of how you doing, Capelle, or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, I went to Belgium. I had to, the day before I had to leave the house, we had to store all the stuff that I had, our personal belongings, into a box. We had to pay for that. We had to pay for the transport to get the stuff safe out there. And then there was this empty house. There was only a mattress on the ground. And my daughter came to visit me, and I had to explain to her that I had to go away for maybe a long time. And that was one of the most difficult things I had to do. That was really difficult, because I didn't know how to explain that I went so far in this process, that I put myself into a position like this, losing the house, losing everything, and not being able to house her anymore, so I was talking to her, and she said to me, she's 40 now, and she said to me, Daddy, is Joris Demming, does Joris Demming want you to leave the house? I said, no, it has nothing to do with Joris Demming. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with a lot of things. I try to explain, but I promise you I will be back soon. I will be back soon. And I will not be on the streets. I have a nice house in Belgium, a nice place. And once I'm settled, I come and pick you up, and you stay like a holiday or a weekend with me. Now, when she went away, so I knew this is the last time I probably see her, maybe for 9 months or 10 months or a year. That was really, to me, I wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah,
to
for
be
sure.
honest with you.
For sure.
Because in that moment of time that my daughter left, and she turned around, I see her still in my memory, see her cycling away on a little bicycle, bye Daddy, like that. And when I went back to this empty place, Micha Kat was already on his side, accusing me of being a coward, being somebody who profited from the grandiose success of always profited of the grand success of his side. You know, I was a coward, a this, a that, and believe me, Melanie, when I tell you, because I'm a human being too, if I would, you know, if this Micha card would be in my house at that moment, I don't know what I would have done.
Can I just ask you for a second here? Okay, so this is after you've asked a few people questions about the alternative media. He's turned on you.
Yeah.
Micha Kat's actually turned on you and started writing articles about you.
Yeah. They started writing articles about me.
Yeah, I had a similar thing happen. Listen, I questioned David Icke in a video clip, and only 240 something views, not even a lot, when he wrote an article calling me like a 2-year-old, basically.
All right.
But he's ageist because he's twice my age. He was calling me immature and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a bit younger than you and I'm a bit more childlike than you are, but you know, hey, so what? You know, I'm half your age," kind of thing.
David Icke did that.
Yeah, he did. He wrote a very nasty letter about us, actually. I put out my first radio show of the year, questioning a lot of things with regards to his research, because I've written my own books and done my own research, and I've interviewed him twice, and there's been drama with me organising him something in South Africa, etc. Long story, I went through it all in my radio show, which you've listened to. But basically, he then... After I put this radio show out in a YouTube clip, it only received not even a lot of views, but he had put out in his newsletter, okay, which I don't even think he writes himself, but he put out in his newsletter, climbing into my character completely, not answering any of the questions that I posed. Even belligerently, but he can't climb into anything other than something he knows is factual about me and that I am much younger than him. And he used that as a launching point, you know, and he called the articles, "We need maturity and integrity, but we get the terrible twos." Yeah, and he put a picture of Calvin and Hobbes there to indicate that we were childlike. I mean, yes, we are younger than you. You have an issue with that?
Yeah, right. Well, the same thing they did for me, basically. You wrote on their sites, you know, they went out on public radio and say things about me like that, you know, "Oh, this guy, you know, this, that." Anyway, though, I had nothing left, and I left to Belgium, where I met Ed van Roy, and there was this small house that I was, you know, I could put myself into and to stay there for the winter. The house had no internet, so I could not work from there. I was illegally, basically, I was not a legal, I don't have Belgium citizenship, so I was a Dutch guy in a house somewhere in Belgium, no right to work, no right for government benefits, but I was supposed to pay 800 euros a month for this house. And the first thing that I noticed on this camp that we were, because it was more, it's called Hengelhoef. Everybody can find it if you look on the internet and you type in domain. It's called Domein Hengelhoef. You will find the place. And what occurred to me is that when it became dark, it became really dark outside. All the lights that were there, the street lights and all that, they didn't burn. So it was a really dark place in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, basically. And I noticed that a lot of people there were, whether they were Russians, or they were, you know, from Hungary, or from all kind of Eastern Europe. They were from Eastern Europe origins. And what they did was they came to Belgium to work illegal jobs for, you know, almost no money. And they were housed there and had to pay almost all their money in order to get housed. And a little bit of money that they had left, they sent it to their families at home in maybe Yugoslavia, Ukraine, or wherever they came from. So I said, you know, this is like a political, you know, kind of political...
Internment camp, really?
Yeah.
Frick.
Yeah. It was more like, how do you call that?
Yeah, a political internment camp, like for refugees.
Yeah, it was more like that. It was more like they used it as a more or less like a political refugee camp, right? Yeah. So I said, this is strange. This location is strange, because this is the location where Ed van Roy put Kevin and Ned, you know, to have a symposium about the Indians in Canada. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is a strange place, because this place here Here are people, they don't even have a right, you know, they don't have even citizen rights anymore. They don't have money. And here's this Roy, you know, putting people here. Because I wasn't the only one who was put there. There were more people there because of Roy. And I met those people too. So I started to ask questions again. Is Roy really, you know, he's Dutch, for instance. He has no Belgian passport. So how can he live in Belgium, and how can he, you know, do all these court cases? How does he do that? He's an illegal alien.
But I thought a European citizen can live anywhere in the European Union.
If you go to Belgium, if you're Dutch, right, and you go to Belgium, you have to apply for Belgian citizenship.
Okay.
So you have to apply for that first. It's on the website of, you know, the Belgian government. If you have to apply for that citizenship. In the meanwhile, it could be that the government is going to help you out with some kind of benefits, and it could be that even when you don't have a status yet, they find a housing place for you.
Yeah.
But Ed van Rooij never went through that process. He just, you know, crossed the border and found himself in a house that he rented for money. So he never went to this normal asylum process that you have to go to and I have to go to if you want to do something in Belgium.
Yeah.
And I found it strange that he was fighting court cases on European level, because you know that if you want to start up cases like that, huge cases, complex cases on a European level, that is a significant amount of money that is involved. If you lose that case, believe me, that you have to pay a lot of money. The reason I know that, because there was in 2006 in a place called Haaksbergen, there was a European court case pending, and it had something to do with all those whether or not you could get cancer from using your cell phone. It was a court case like that. And the mayor of that town stated in the newspaper, if we lose this case, we will, you know, everybody in this city, it had something like 20,000 or 30,000 people, you know, have to pay. So like maybe 30,000 people had to pay 10 euros or something like that. That were the costs. And here is this Ed van Rooij claiming that he had nothing, that he did not receive any income, you know, fighting, launching European court cases, one after another, hundreds of them. And 50 or 60 were lost. He lost those cases, and others, they are still pending. Now, where does the money come from to pay for the losses? To pay for that? So there were a lot of questions that I had, and I started to talk to Ed van Rooij when he visited me about it. Just ask him some questions. Mr. van Rooij, how can this be? You claim that you are a political refugee from Holland. You claim that you were in danger, that your family was in danger in Holland, that the government was seeking your death. That's what you claim in your own paperwork. And I see that as soon as you went over the border with Belgium, that you put your address and your new whereabouts in letters and stuff that you openly publish on the internet. So how does this work, Mr. van Rooij? I asked him that.
Yeah.
And he said, well, no, there's lots of things you have to understand. You know, I have friends. He started to, you know, try to get out of this question. But he never answered me properly. And I said to him, you know, the other thing I find strange, you proclaim on your sites, as well as it is proclaimed on Klokkenluider on the air and on the Hagersel radio, that you help people with court cases for free. But in your own papers, I see that you filed for money. So how can this be? You're not helping those people for free. You make money. And I don't care if you make money or not. Of course, we all have to make money if we live in this system. Of course, I know that. But there is something wrong with the claims you make. How can you be a political refugee and have all these rights in Belgium? How can you be this and that? Well, believe it or not, it did take 3 or 4 weeks something really strange happened. There were some people, I'm not going to give out the names, I did not even do that in the book, because there are some big risks for me still. There were some people that had worked in the past with Ed van Rooij. They had organized the symposiums in Belgium. They had done all that. They came to my house and asked us, would you like to go with us tonight to town to have a drink? I said, yeah, because I was, already in this confinement of this house. I could not go anywhere. I could not do anything. It was like I was in jail, in prison. So we went, me and those people went off the camp, and they showed us, the things, the sites, basically, in a place, I forgot the name, but it's in the book. It's a small Belgium city. We went out there to have a drink, and suddenly one of those people that were with us, that accompanied us, they brought us to a sport field. There was this big football field, and they had this little building, and they said, we have to meet some friends there. So we drove there, and we met their friends, and they were all Italians, all of them, and Italian people, and they were sitting there on a big table, and they had this, grilled chicken, and they were playing a card game, and we were introduced to these people, and they were really nice to us. Hello, you from Holland? Hey, that's nice. Are you from Holland? Okay, come sit down here, enjoy, Here you have a beer, here you have a chicken. And the people who brought us there, so the people who worked in the past with Ed van Rooij, left us there suddenly. They disappeared. I don't know where they went, but I found myself in a room and another person that was with me. We found ourselves in a room with 12 or 13 Italian people that were looking at us and asking us questions, general questions, nothing scary, but I had the feeling that, I don't know, there's something wrong about this evening. I felt very uncomfortable back then. And so I decided to stand up, to leave the room, and to see where the people were that we had met on the camp. And this Italian guy, he said, no, I'll leave them. Let those people be, They have a little bit of an argument, they have a fight. Just sit down, relax, eat something. And the more and more I spent time in this room, I became convinced that something would happen to me, that they would do something to me. Whether it were those people in the room, or there was something organized outside, but there was this gut feeling that we would be attacked and that we would not leave Belgium alive. And, well, first I thought maybe could this be my imagination? I mean, would they go so far? If you ask questions, if you have documents, would they go so far to do something to you like that? I could not believe it. But on the other hand, there was this gut feeling. So I was talking to those people, and they asked me why I was there, and what did I do in Holland? What was it that I exactly did? So I told them I was, a guy on the internet, questioning the government. Oh, this guy says, well, you cannot do that. If you do that, they take everything from you. It's logical that you are now in this position, but I'm sorry for you, this and that. They were talking, well, kind of polite, but it was like, I don't know how to explain, because English is not my native language.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There were subtle undertones.
There were subtle undertones. It reminded me of scenes like in The Godfather or something. When people talk like that.
Yeah, when you're about to have your head taken off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I left the room at a certain point, and I found out that the persons who accompanied us there were actually not there. And there was this window, I could look outside, and there was the car of Ed van Rooij. I recognized the car from Ed van Rooij driving away. And then I knew something is really wrong. There is something wrong. This is not a figment of your imagination or a reminder of The Godfather. There is something here that is out of order, and we have to be very careful. Now, one of these persons that accompanied us there suddenly came into the building again. So they were outside for whatever reason. On the parking lot, the same parking lot where I recognized the car of Ed van Rooij. And one of the persons came in and said, can we borrow your car? The car of the car of the person that was with me, that accompanied me there. Can we borrow the car? We need to pick up something. So I call it in the book, I call it X. X, you know, the driver that brought us, refused to hand over the keys and said, no, nobody is going to buy my car. No, nobody is going to take away my car somewhere I don't know. I'm not going to do that. And they started to become a little bit threatening. So X said, you know, listen, I don't know what you guys up to, what you guys up to, but I'm not going to give you my car keys. Period. It's not going to happen. So the ride back to the camp, when we were in the car, the two of them were in the back seat of the car. I was in front of the car on the passenger side, and then there was the driver, X. And there was this atmosphere in the car. And I said, you know, is there some, you know, what's wrong? You know, I asked myself, what's wrong here? Is there something wrong? No, there was nothing wrong. But they started to argue with each other now on the, you know, in the back of the car. And I don't know what they were arguing about. I didn't understand what it was all about. But when we reached the camp, one of the persons, the car did not even stop yet, opened the door and ran into the woods with a cell phone and started to call somebody. Now we were left in the car, me, the driver X, and the other person was still in the backside of the car. And I felt that if I would have asked, is there something that you, like, if I would have asked questions, you know, a question like, is there something that you must do? I'm sure that we would have got an answer that would have terrified us, basically. I was sure that they were used to beat us up or to kill us or to do something to us. And this happened because we were in, the car stopped, we went to into the house, and suddenly the one who left the car and ran into the woods with his cell phone on the air, on his ear, talking to somebody, God knows who he was talking to, I don't know, appeared in front of our house, opened the door, and started to fight us. So it became a huge fight in the house. And also, I noticed during all this was going on, I noticed that there were more people outside. I felt them. I could not see them, but I could feel that there were more people approaching the house, so that we would not have, you know, we did not stand a chance. But somehow X, the one who was with me, in the moment of despair during the fight, found the strength to get this guy out of the house and close the door. Now, the house was already in ruins back then. The table was, you know, glass was everywhere, shattering. It was, you know, it was like like a scene of a war zone, the house.
Yeah.
And X looked at me and said, take your stuff, take your clothing, put it in a suitcase, we leave now, now. Do it immediately. So I did that, I reacted on that. Took small stuff, put it in a bag. And we wanted to leave the house. And there, suddenly, out of the blue, new people appeared, and they said to us, listen, we are the owner of this establishment, of this camp here. We are the owners of it. We run the restaurant, and we want you to pay a bill. We want you to pay the bill. And we asked, what bill, you know? They really forced us to pay for drinks, food, and all kinds of beverages that one of our attackers had left there. And they made it really clear that if we would not pay up this bill, and this was our last money, we did not even have enough gasoline in the tank, we needed to put gasoline in the car, to get away from there. This was our last money. They said, if you don't pay the money, you will find yourself in a huge problem. So we had to pay. They forced us to hand over our last money. We had not €1 left. So we went into the car that had hardly enough gas to reach the Belgium-Dutch border. X was wounded. The driver was really wounded. The arm, the leg could almost not move the body and all that. And when we drove, we sped basically off the compound. Those people who threatened us were in front of our headlights, and X opened the window. They threatened us again, asked us for more money. And then X, just hit the pedal, sped away. We left this compound, and we somehow managed to get out of Belgium. Now, when we were out of Belgium, we were back in Holland. We had almost no gas. So X brought me to the house of a friend, of a family member, and we spent the first night there, not believing what just happened to us. Calling the police once we were in Holland, calling the police to file a report against our attackers, against all that. But the police told us, well, if you would have come directly, you could file this report, but you can't do it now because you're already in Holland. You can't do it now. We cannot do anything anymore about it because you left
Belgium,
the country. Now, next day we went to a hotel, and X visited a doctor. And I went to a hotel with no money at all, and the persons of that hotel, I never forget them. The names were Nicole and Gerrit, and they were the owners of a hotel. And they, decided, let this guy in and rent him, give him the room, even when we didn't have sufficient funds anymore to pay them. So when I was in my hotel room, Melanie. And when I had access on the internet, the first thing I did was making just enough money. I was able to make just enough money to eat and pay for the room. That's all I had. I could not do any more. But at the same time, I made a channel. I made a new YouTube channel, and I called that channel "There Will Be No Justice." And on that channel, I explained what happened to me in Belgium a couple of days before that. And I explained that I was sincerely suspecting Micha K, Arend Sefan, and Van Rooij to be somehow responsible for this. And if I was wrong, I put them in the opportunity to respond. And they never did. They never responded to that claim. So I started to investigate because of my old connections and my old network, and I found out through Facebook, because Facebook is connecting people to each other, right?
Yeah.
They made a stupid mistake because in the Facebook of the guy that also did a lot for the alternative media, the Sietse Planting, in the Facebook of this guy was a friend. He had a friend in there, and that friend had another person in there, and that was the person who was working for the housing company that evicted me from my home and had the power to do it.
No way.
So I backed up all the evidence I could find like that, and I decided, you know what, the only thing I can do now is going to write a book about this.
Yeah.
What will happen to you if you try to change the world, and if you trust those people? I'm going to write it in a book. I will provide it with photos, with all the evidence that I have, all that. I will put it in a book. I will put it in writing, and I will try to find a publisher. Now, when I was doing that, it was the 24th of April this year. So Micha Kat went on public radio and said, you know, this guy, this Francis Capelle, this fucking, that's what he called me like that, this fucking piece of shit, this coward, insane bastard. He needs to get lynched, people. He needs to get lynched, he needs to get hanged. We need to hang these kind of people. Just like in the Second World War, those people were, you know, hanged on meat hooks or on ropes. We need to hang these kind of people. And the alternative media allowed him to state that on public available radio, basically asking this country to find out where I am and kill me. And it is still out there, it's still online, the broadcast.
It's insane.
In which he states that. Now,
Francis, so just to clarify, Micha Kat, again, this is the guy who has the Whistleblower online website.
That's
actually,
right.
then he's the one that actually broadcasts on Aarhussel. So Aarhussel is also somewhat responsible. Did he make this broadcast on Aarhussel?
yes.
Okay, all right. Now we got it on picture. Okay, no, this is so. And one more thing, I just want you to explain the connection to Micha Kat with regards to the person who had the power to evict you from housing.
No, there's no connection between Micha Kat and the person who evicted me from my home.
No, I'm talking about. You said you found someone on Facebook through Facebook. Yeah.
I understand. Listen, Sitzeplanting is a guy. He's also a whistleblower.
Yeah.
And he was working a lot with Micha Kat behind the screens. Well, the Sitzeplanting had a friend in his Facebook, and that friend had a friend in his Facebook, and that last person was the person who was, you know, had the power to evict me from my home.
Okay.
And so there is no direct connection between Micha Kat and the person who evicted me from my home.
Yeah.
But there is a connection in the alternative media with the person who, you know, evicted me from my home. And you have to remember, the judge never, when I started to do the court cases about Deming, about all that, about everything that I learned in the alternative media, the government did not do anything to me. The problem started when I asked the alternative media what they were about and what they exactly wanted. Then the problem started to get shape.
Because you started to shake a PSYOPs, a major PSYOPs with a lot invested.
Yeah, right. So that's how that's why I wrote the book, you know, to warn people that if you really think, if you really come close to these people and you have questions, and your brain starts, you know, to, you know, ask questions, and you have to be very careful because there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of power involved. And, you know, people do crazy things to defend their money. Believe me, they do.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have to be really careful who you trust. And just, you know, use your common sense. If you look at the alternative media in Holland and you do a little investigation, you will see that they are connected to the UN, that they are well organized, that the captains of this network can go and buy whatever they goddamn please. They can do that. They can fly into this country, out of this country. They can buy one house, 3 houses. They can buy expensive artwork. They can afford themselves to stay in other countries without asking for political asylum. They can do things that a common citizen is not able to do. And if you ask those things, if you ask things like that, and if you ask the manner, how do you do that? What kind of law provides in your liberty and takes away mine? If you ask questions like that, you will become a danger inside this group. And they will, you know, they will harm you. They will.
Yeah.
Believe me, they will.
Francis, give us your website there.
I don't have a website. I only have. I can. Is it good if I provide you the link?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm on. Okay, yeah.
No, I just wanted for air. Don't worry, I'll edit that out. Listen, I think this is enough. We've got plenty to put out there for the meantime. Is there anything else you need to put in urgently? Because I don't want to make it too much longer.
No.
Okay, all right.
No.
All right, brilliant.
I told you everything I knew about the Dutch alternative media.
Okay.
And I hope that, the audience in England, forgives me my funny Dutch accent.
No, we love your accent, no worries.
And I hope that they are, somehow alarmed by it. Do their own investigations, use your own common sense, because that's the most powerful tool you have. Use it, and if you feel uncomfortable, don't doubt about the doubt. If you have doubt, don't doubt. Act on it. Don't give them any information. Just be yourself and try to do whatever you can to make your life better. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's good advice to anyone.
Yeah.
All right, Francis, listen, thank you very much for your information. A lot to chew over here, and I hope to get this up pretty soon. But
right.
We'll speak again soon.
Soon, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Francis. Speak soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.